to talk to people about financial literacy, I see a typical story of germination. And I mean, they taught us science in primary school, but the typical story of germination is thus: that for every seed that will be put in the ground, of course, it will start by imbibition, where it opens up and water enters it. But the idea that it has to first rot before it sprouts out is what the story she's sharing. Her story is not different from mine. It's not different from any one of us here. It will just be on the aspects. For example, in my story, I told you that after campus, I was the money lender. So I came to the city. A guy gave me a room, and he told me, Newton, you helped me during I was the campaign manager for a one Charles. I think you must have watched Deception. The guy was Chris. He was a guild presidential candidate in campus, and I was the campaign agent. I was the chief campaign manager, and we spent all the money. We ran broke after campus, and he told me, what you did for me, I was touched. I'm going to give you an office in the city for a full year without you bothering to pay rent. Now, it's like giving someone a car when they do not have money for fuel. They will either borrow or ask for it, but they have a car. It will just push them to driving. So they gave me an office in the city, and I did not have what to do in the office. So I was with my great friend called Tony, R.I.P. He actually passed on last year in November. So we started looking for the different things to be done. And at that particular juncture, a hunch came to me, and I was like, okay, what should I do? When I was at campus, I was lending out money. And now people who are in the field are calling in for the money. Let me start lending. The thing in Luganda, we say nechikwata yo. I brought my dad on board, brought my uncle on board. They gave me lots of money. I started lending. But remember, I do not even know why I'm lending. But I have money. Whoever borrows, I give them. So I also didn't have a business plan. I didn't have any specificity on how to lend. So people would come, and I would be like, okay, if I could lend Eddie, and Eddie comes with the wife, I could lend Eddie's wife if Eddie's the surety. Then I could also lend Eddie's uncle if Eddie's the surety. I could also lend Eddie's uncle's neighbor if Eddie's the surety. So I gave out money. I was just giving out money. I had a lot of money, and it accumulated. But I wasn't asking for security. I wasn't actually, the only thing they were giving me was maybe they were giving me checks, post-dated checks. So during the credit crunch, a pack of cards, the thing came from hero to zero on the ground. So I didn't have the money to share to give my funders. And I tried pursuing everything. You go to courts of law, you go to police, you sit in meetings to negotiate, and everything now ran amok. So that's when I realized that actually, even though I had a lot of money, I didn't have an asset. I couldn't point at a piece of land, I couldn't point at a house, I couldn't point at anything. But I had millions because they had accumulated, and I had brought investors on board. So that's when I sat back and I was like, okay, I think I made a mistake, but I want to redo the same. It must be in Luke 5:4, where Jesus is talking to the disciples, and they came to tell him, we spent whole night, we couldn't catch any fish. And he's telling them, I think that's where we get the motto from Smark Duke in Alton, to launch in the deep. So the lesson there was, Jesus did not tell them to change the lake. He did not tell them to change the nets. He did not tell them to change the business. He did not tell them to change the people who were fishing. He told them to use the same lake, the same nets, the same people, even the same time they are fishing. But this time launch, as in do that same thing, but this time deeper. So it dawned on, but now where would I get the money? I did not have any money. So something came, another hunch, and I was like, okay. There was a guy whom I had lent money, and he had left me a title. I'm going to talk to him into helping me with his title, where I would now take, he would give me powers of attorney. I would borrow on his title. The bank would give me money. So me, I would sort the bank. Meanwhile, I will tell him he no longer owes me money. You get the exchange? So his debt exists, but I'm telling him we will write it off as long as you give me powers of attorney. Me, I borrow. So I borrowed from two. I had this plan that let me go to UK. Let me go and do a master's in a top-notch school. Excel. Get a job. In the UK, there was something called a post-study work visa. Let me go get that visa. The visa was for 2 years. Let me go top-notch university, Excel, get that visa. Work for a year to recoup the money I've borrowed. Work for the second year. Get all now the capital. Come back to Uganda. So, and it all worked out smoothly. I mean, going abroad is hard because I wasn't on a scholarship. I had to show the UK government that I had 200 million that would fund the whole thing. So I partnered with my dad and I found a way. I borrowed from those two banks and we put the money on the account. Paid some fees, moved. But I want to promise you, if you are an ardent reader of the Bible, you will find it in Job 1 and Job 2. The moment you showcase that you are on the move to greatness, the negative forces are in that meeting, they are taking minutes, and they have action points. You see, there is that thing of someone taking minutes without action points, Eddie. But the guys are taking minutes with action points. Because I want to promise you that when I moved and landed, that's when everything started going berserk. The landlord who had advertised that I would be paying per week, he told me, you a foreigner, you would pay a full year. Where would I get all that money? So things started changing and changing and changing and changing. Then by December, that's when we got to know that even the house I had gotten in the UK, however cheap, it wasn't a house for a dwelling. You see, when you're on self-sponsorship, you're looking for all these cheap things. So they will show you a house owned by a Moyindi. And you're like, aha, and a nyumbe jokola. Kumbe, it does not have central heating. It does not have double glazing. So during the winter, it is -10 outside, and it is 2 in your room. And we're like, umwana gwe immediately. So my dad could not let the cat out of the bag immediately. So they looked for me. They couldn't find me. They were like, let's threaten him that would now attach his things. So I realized that in December, when it was too cold, in Uganda, there was no money to come from Uganda. In fact, banks wanted me so badly. Now, the university wrote to me and told me I should add more money. I did not have the money. Because I didn't have money, because I didn't have a job, imagine I thought that if I land in the UK and I have my degree in statistics, I'm an Oracle certified professional, I would work on a system. The system in the UK is designed that if you're a foreigner, you will start by being a cleaner and do many jobs. So this is the situation I was in. Me wanted this rent, and I usually laugh. I remember he called me and asked me, Newton. I'm like, yes, Mr. Hazari. Are you answering from the house? I'm like, because it's cold outside. He told me, you have to answer this call outside the house. You are in rent areas. So I mean, it haunted me, and I was like, the very first building I'll build will have, I'll call it Pulley Green, because of the Pulley Green place I was in and the nostalgia I have for Pulley Green. So I had decided I was returning to Uganda because I no longer saw what it would really mean if I stayed. The university is bothering me. My housemates, I owe them money. The landlord wants money. In Uganda, when I see my dad calling, I'm like, what are they saying now? But then, in the middle of all that, I sat down and I'm like, okay, if I went back, I would leave the degree. If I went back, I wouldn't have the money. If I went back, I would still have to pay those loans. It is so important for the people who are watching us to start attaching huge importances to things they want to do. Because in the middle, something will come that prompts your rotting. It could be a job that you really want it, but you're going to be tested on it. Remember, the angels went to God, and when they reached God, they could not even speak, but Satan took up the agenda. When Satan took up the agenda, he's the one who spoke, and God asked him, you man, where have you been? And Satan said, I've been roaming around the earth. They asked, have you seen my man Job? He said, I'm seeing the man, but I think he praises you because you give him property. So God was like, go touch, but you do not touch the man. So you realize that God and Satan have the same government. He has been sent to disorganize. And they come again and they mention it in Ephesians 6:11-18, where they tell you that we have principalities. The guy we never see. The guys we never see. And they bother us. 1 Peter 5:8, they are telling you that the devil is like a lion, prowling and roaming around you. So when you are on the job, it will seem nice. When you are in the business, it will seem nice. But we shall ask you the simplest of questions. Are you ready for the rotting? Because the rotting must come. It could be a fight with your boss. It could be a fight with customers. It could be this huge thing. But at the end of the day, if the purpose at the end was bigger, and it's meaningful, because I've loved Caritas's message because it was honest, and she was telling you she did not seek advice. She did not bother that. She did not bother about that. She did not bother about knowing about money. But she's in the game of the money without the rules. Now, it's like coming in the money game without the rules. How will you play if you do not know that this is handball? If you do not, if money was a football game, and you're playing and you do not know that touching in the box is a handball, this is a free kick, this is a penalty, if you do not know those things, then you've lowered your chances. But the beauty, and why I love that story, is she stopped at some moment and organized herself to say, I have to first leave this thing. Because we always get lost in the moment that I have to be there. They gave me a contract, I have to be there. I want to tell you that I finished the degree, and thank God it was a first class. And now I started looking for the job. But because I told you the guys are always in the meeting with action points, the Home Secretary at the time was Theresa May. And we as promised people in the UK that we shall lower the number of foreigners. We are removing the post-study work visa. Now imagine, I'm almost there. They remove the there. So I'm almost nowhere. You get the idea. So what really happens is now I'm like, what do I have to do? I applied for all the jobs. We could get interviews and we could beat the interviews. But then at the end they ask you, oh, Mr. Newton, could you please tell us your visa status? And you're like, students. We're sorry, but we'll get back to you. We'll get back. Everyone is getting, so we would save those numbers as get back to me, get back to me, get back. So it was that tough. And I want to promise you that I did my final interview on 30th January 2013 when my visa was expiring on 31st. So finished the interview, landed on a plane, came back to Uganda, and my dad was picking me from the airport, and he was telling me, banks are looking for you. You cannot sit in the car with your head high. So I had to be in the car that whole entire journey. So what I realized was, now you require to be flexible, because COVID is our best chance at rethinking, at refocusing, at reshaping. You can wake up from 2020, you can work for 10 years without ever stopping to think why you're even working. You can even do it for 20 years. The salary comes, you see people being promoted, you see but you've never asked, why are you actually working? So if you ask yourself that, knowing what I know now, this is my job, this is how it pays, am I going to be able to look after these 3 individuals and my wife? If you cannot, then the importance of this talk is that you sit back and you reshape. There is no reason for you to want to go to Jinja, and you are in the car, you want to go to Jinja, but you reach Busega roundabout and instead go to Masaka. You reach Kayabwe. You jump out, you ask boda guys, bana njaga genda ko Jinja. They tell you, Jinja Road, you'll have to go back to Busega and then take and go back. If you insist and you drive forward, you're going to Masaka. Going backwards wastes fuel, wastes time. You even look, the new word is dimwit. You look at dimwit. But the idea is, it's the best way to actually organize your life. So I realized that people need to know that pulling out for a time, pulling out for a life is part of life. It is also okay. Thinking about changing a job without that job the job actually changing your life, it is still going to Masaka when you want to go to Jinja. You can pull out and really reorganize. I remember I got a job, a very well-paying job in an organization. The contract was for 5 years. They told me, when the US government is giving you the pay, it will be high up there. And actually it was high up there. I even renegotiated and they increased the money. So after 1 year, I had to quit a 4.5-year contract, because now I realized that I had seen some things, and my calling was to talk to people about money. I had seen it as I was growing, but I didn't actually realize that this was my calling. I had seen it, you see, in primary school, when I look at all my report cards, they say Newton has been excellent, but the man is talkative. My teachers saw my abilities to speak as early as P1. My parents didn't, I didn't, people around me didn't. So there is some strength in you, and people might see it different. But it's only when you pull out and you're like, wait a minute, I think I can speak to people. And if people are interested in what I'm speaking, then I should add a charge to it. But the importance is, now when I add the charge to it, it's not the amount of the charge. What will I do with the charge? So I want to hand over to you again, Eddie. But the message for me, it's clear that these people will need to start acquainting themselves with the money game and the rules of money. For example, what's the difference between making and growing? If you're an employee, you're making money because you're exchanging time for reward. That's the definition of making money. A money maker exchanges time for reward. That is so simple, because God created us with all the abilities to make money. However, and a big one at that, you need to get now the money you've made and you start growing it. How do we grow money? by selling something. And I do not care whether you're in that office. What are you selling? You see, all the wealthiest people we know, all of them are selling. Who is the richest man in Africa? Isn't it Dangote? Would you separate him from selling cement? Who is the richest man in Uganda? You would all mention all the names, but one of them you will find is either selling food or selling space or selling kachira sugar or selling, as in all these things. The wealthiest men are selling. When we skip and we go to Europe, the wealthiest man, Bernard Arnault, is the owner of LVMH. Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, they are selling bags and cognacs and whiskies and all this. When you go to US, Jeff Bezos even does not sell anything. He owns the market. He says the market is Amazon. So people need to start knowing, and I'm mentioning this because I realize that more people who are employed are viewing this.
Indeed.
The job has been created to give you a seed. It won't do anything more. It will give you maybe, it will give you the experience and all that, but the money from employment will be a seed. It has to be planted somewhere outside, and you could plant it in things, but these things, you might say that if they grow, we could sell them with money, or we have all these things around us which will improve our lives. Over to you, Eddie. Thank you.
Another wow. This is the moment when I'm supposed to clap.
Hey, okay.
That's it.